Ladies and gentlemen, in this video, we're going to be going through the $1 million a month action plan. I'm going to go through step by step what I would do, what funnels I would bias towards launching with, how we would structure it, pricing details as it relates to offers, a little bit of offer stuff peppered in there. We're going to go through some of the ad strategies that I would launch with. Can't stress it enough. This is a nice, well-encompassing video to go over a $1 million a month launch plan. If you're new to the channel, that's all we ever talk about around here is hitting $1 million months. Of course, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, there's a 0.1% probability that you ever hit $10 million a year, let alone the even slimmer chance that you hit the big $1 million a month. And of course, if you're already a subscriber, welcome back. Absolute pleasure to have you. You're probably wondering where the fuck is Jeremy filming today. This is a new facility that we acquired for our Inner Circle masterminds. We have a nice pool table over here as an example, perfectly leveled, need I not say, for that exact spot that you see it, and I'm not allowed to move it anywhere. 800 pounds. Over here, soon enough, we'll have a nice ping pong table. There's still many things, as you can see, that are actively being done to the facility. Okay, we have many things to do. Behind me here, we have a 220-inch screen, 4K LED. I put a serious sound system into this place. And on top of that, what you guys can't see is actually an entire another half behind you that we have here for the lounging and the networking side of things that we'll do throughout the Inner Circle Masterminds. I also want to say there's a few things missing. Over here along this wall, I have 4 branded arcade machines with 13,000 games apiece. I mean, what's better during networking at a mastermind than beating somebody's ass and taking a little bit of money from them, hypothetically assuming we're gambling a bit, on Mortal Kombat or like Street Fighter or something like that, you know? Sounds pretty cool to me. So anyway, still here in good old Miami, Florida, but decided, fuck it, why not shoot a YouTube video today inside of here? So without further ado, let's dive in. Okay, number one, and this one's most important, okay? You always want to start by doing the $1 million a month math. If you try to launch towards $1 million a month and you do not do basic math, you are a moron, okay? You have no idea. It becomes like a random, you're just gonna stumble into the goal kind of situation or never even come close to the goal situation if you don't have the clarity from doing the actual math. The math is super simple. It's super simple. You take $1 million, okay, and you're gonna divide it by what your average AOV is currently. So whatever you actually cash collect. I'm not one of those guys that's ever gonna tell you to optimize around your future revenue or your future ROI that you may or may not get from payment plans that you're putting people on. I prefer to optimize around 30-day cash collected. What I've also found is everybody who I've ever worked with gives a fuck to do the exact same. We're fronting dollars and risking dollars, and within that same 30-day cycle, we want to be able to put that money back in our pocket and put some additional cash in our bank account as well. Is it awesome if we get some additional money beyond that? Sure. But I'm going cash collected in real time when I say AOV. What I'm then going to get out of this is the amount of customers that I actually need to generate within that 30-day cycle to be able to crack $1 million gross in a month. What I'm then going to be able to do, and this really depends on what you currently got going on from here. Assuming you're going to do it via paid advertising, we could back into the full math. If you're already paid advertising, we have numbers that we can plug into a financial model. If you're brand new to paid advertising and you're only doing everything organic currently, you're obviously not gonna have numbers and you're gonna have to go with some assumptions. So you're more probable in that case to wanna bias towards worst case scenario statistics in your financial model. But you also have to be aware of like the general range of what it's gonna cost to acquire. When you spend money to acquire a specific customer, here's the moral of the story. Once you do the math, it reveals all the other numbers that you get to back into from there. Once I get the amount of customers, I can just go backwards. So as an example of that, just to be clear, I can back into it with my close rate. By the way, quick note, on the YouTube channel, one of the Inner Circle Masterminds I've done over the years, I had a migraine in a particular week when I was here filming for YouTube, so I didn't film. I grabbed one of the mastermind talks out of our mastermind library vault for the Inner Circle, and I threw it here on YouTube for you guys in its entirety. It is on closer math, and I was specifically grilling one of the guys who was in the room for that mastermind who was stuck around like 700 or 800K a month for a long time. And I broke down his math specifically in front of everybody and plugged it for a whole bunch of different examples for people that were in the room. The moral of the story is that specific video goes through like every one of these numbers. But anyway, rough estimate for you guys. Let's assume that you have a close rate. And again, close rate depends on how you're going to generate the customers. Live webinars, challenge funnels. Are you doing low ticket to high ticket ascension rates? Are you doing a call funnel? Are you doing DM ads? Obviously, that's going to dictate all the numbers that you specifically need to back into. But you got things like close rate, you got things like show rate, and of course you have to factor in 1 call close or 2 call close. In that example, you'd have your show rate for the second call, the close rate for the second call, you'd have the second call booking rate, you'd have the first call show rate, you'd have the cost per first call, things like that. Assuming you have a 1 call close rate, show rate, you obviously have your cost per call, and you'd obviously want to do your cost per qualified call in that example. And then that's going to reveal the total amount of calls that you actually need to generate. And then when you take the total amount of calls that you need to generate times the cost per call, that gives you the amount of ad spend that you're going to need to drop. And that's ultimately what we're looking for if we're going to take the paid advertising approach to acquiring all of our customers. Now, there's a lot of different examples out there through time that have done substantial launch events where they'll mix organic and they'll mix paid. That's a great way to have a one-off $1 million month. But when you want to have consistency in cracking $1 million months, you either need to start having a channel that can consistently provide you the amount of calls, aka the amount of leads and opportunities to actually be able to have any chance to hit that amount of revenue every single month. I don't ever want to encourage you to just do it one time. I'd prefer you to build a model that can consistently tap it month over month over month. The other way, and this is also really important to understand, is through recurring offers. Okay, so recurring offers help a lot. This is a lot of great game I'm going to put you on for this specific way you need to think about recurring offers and why they're so important. So let's assume you get your total ad spend number that you actually need to spend in a 30-day window to generate X amount of calls or X amount of webinar leads that are going to turn into calls or sales, etc. And you look at that number and you're a little intimidated by it. You know, you're pretty far away from it. Let's say you're spending tens of thousands of dollars a month and you learn you need to spend like 100 to 300K a month to generate $1 million a month. Well, in that example, to be intimidated by the numbers simply means that you have a financial deficit, okay? And in order to close that financial deficit, why not have a way where other people can fund our ad spend for us? That's how we could start to frame some of the organic sales that we might generate in a month. The organic revenue that we produce, like we get guys that come to us all the time that are doing a couple $100,000 a month, all the way up to literally a couple $1 million a month already that are purely organic revenue. And what they'll do is they'll siphon off some of that organic profit that they're generating and they use it for their paid advertising gambling budgets that they get. And those people have the opportunity to take more risk because they already have a set amount of organic revenue that they project month over month to come in based on the fact they consistently grow. They already have it for a long period of time, so they have a rough idea of how consistent it is and like what they can expect for revenue ranges. And again, they'll just siphon off a budget. They can risk it for 30 days, vaporize it, and then have it again there waiting for them in the next 30 days to gamble with. The alternative to that is you get other people to pay for the ad spend for you. If you already have a customer base or you already have somewhat of a following, rather than trying to sell these people a transactional service, try to consider an offer that might be like $1,000 to upwards of $10,000 a month that you can have people consistently paying for upwards of 6 months or a year plus, ideally lifetime, as long as you can consistently provide enough value and you get enough people that pay for that. Let's assume you go with a $1,000 a month model, okay? If you charged a measly $1K a month for something and you had about 50 people that pay you for that, assuming you have a little bit of costs on that, you might have upwards of 30 to, after it obviously becomes pure profit, potentially upwards of $40,000-ish a month that you have the opportunity that other people are paying you to turn around and use for paid advertising. That's a great way to enable you to kind of inch up a little bit on the current budget range that you have. You have to reframe it so you can close that gap sooner. Of course, there's generally a lot that you have to be able to accomplish successfully when scaling to maintain the stability and consistency while you scale. Going from $50,000 a month in spend to upwards of $300,000 a month in spend likely is going to stress test your systems along the way, and there's specific problems that you might run into that take you weeks to solve per problem. As an example, hiring closers. You have a finite team that you've worked with on the organic side of things for a long time. We're at a very low level on the paid advertising side for a long time. Now you're going to have to expand that team rapidly. You're going to have to be able to acquire closers, be able to successfully throw them onto the calendars within like a couple week duration of time, from hiring to the point of getting on the calendars and filling their calendars. 2 weeks is the most ideal scenario. For most of you, it's going to be upwards of 3 to 4 weeks. My point is that needs to become something you become highly skilled at and more efficient at as time continues to pass, because that's going to delay your ability to have the consistent $1 million months. So anyway, moral of the story is, besides making sense of the money, you obviously have to make sure that your systems, your fulfillment, your sales teams all have the capacity to handle whatever the math reveals. And that builds what we call a scaling plan. The scaling plan reveals how much we need to spend incrementally over time, and we can back into that number as well for when we want to spend that additional cash. I can go into a basic Google sheet and I can show that here's my current spend that I'm going to risk in 30 days. Here's how many calls that's probable to produce for me and how many opportunities I'm going to get. And therefore, here's how many people I'm probable to generate revenue from and how much revenue I'm going to get. Then the next week I can say, okay, I'm going to scale it this much, and then the next week this much, and then the next week this much. And I can see how many more calls are going to come in. And I can therefore know ahead of time, I'm going to need to hire this many closers by this date, this many closers by this date, this many closers by this date. Because again, it's a 3 to 4 week, best case scenario, 2-week problem that you have to solve. That has to be something you can perpetually do. You obviously also have to have the skill set and know-how to actually fill the calendars consistently. On the paid advertising side, the organic side, or the combination of the two, you have to have the proper sales management in place to be able to train these people and activate them quickly so you can confidently take that risk to fill their calendar, right? And here's the thing, I want to be really clear on this. My channel has so many videos that can help you with that confidence, but of course my paid programs do as well. And there's links for both of those down in the description, whether it's my Master Internet Marketing program where we go through 7 weeks. Each class is about 3 to 5 hours in length. We cover one topic per week, super in-depth, fire hose of information. You come out a true expert. On the other side, my offer for rich people trying to get a lot richer is my Jeremy's Inner Circle offer. An incredible program, one-on-one mentoring, weekly group calls, quarterly in-person masterminds right here in good old Miami, Florida. And by the way, we still have the penthouse, of course. We do the networking over at the penthouse, and we just do the actual day of content with some networking. It's a 2-day thing. So anyway, unlimited access to Jeremy AI, huge course library, tons of shit that comes with it, and it's very valuable. Helps rich people get a lot richer for sure. But anyway, my point being, that's what you have to be skilled at. However you choose to be skilled at it and get the confidence and certainty you need it. That's the moral of the story. Now, once you actually have done the math, okay, what you then need to do is you need to pick a specific funnel, or you need to pick a set of funnels, okay? And you need to be able to plug your offer into that successfully as well. So here's the thing, different offers require you, and different sales teams require you to play into the strengths of what your business prefers and what your customer type prefers. As a great example of this, when we have sales teams that are just absolute fucking killers, they could give a shit if somebody books a call with them. They just want to call as many people as they can that had any baseline level of interest. Even if it's curious or a low level of interest, they don't give a fuck. They just want to dial and text and follow up infinitely with as many people per day as they possibly can. If you've got that type of sales team, there's no need to have essentially a lot of the inefficiencies that come from webinars or call funnels. You can just run a strategy that leverages lead forms, like the Hydra strategy, that's in almost all instances going to get a far greater quantity of leads and enable your people, your salespeople in this case, to immediately dial on those people and have a lot more people to dial through for the same dollars spent. Comparatively, if your sales team right now is used to a very warm lead, okay, a webinar might be the best case scenario for you. A call funnel with incredibly well-built back-end selling systems, like well-built confirmation pages, the Hammer Them campaign for remarketing and putting content in front of those people, which we talk about in depth on this channel, of course, and in all the paid programs that we have. Value-dense email sequences, the setters making contextual lists of sales assets and texting it to those leads prior to the calls. That's likely what you're going to have to play into if you have a sales team that prefers scheduled calls and prefers people to come through very hot, okay? The other very important thing to note is you can have in either one of these scenarios, instead of the fronting cash model with funnels, you can liquidate the cost of that ad spend through a low ticket to high ticket funnel where you sell somebody something. We recently saw that as an example. It seemed like a fucking Super Bowl level event for this info industry specifically. We saw Hermosi do an absolute gangbusters self-liquidating. I looked at it more as a challenge funnel because it was like upwards of a 5-hour webinar, but still, I mean, it was technically a webinar. The moral of the story is he got people to buy a book and had a handful of upsells in that specific funnel prior to his webinar happening. So, and he demonstrated this inside of his webinar. He was profitable going into it, right? And we've talked about that on this channel with challenge funnels specifically, where we've had upwards of a 1.9x profitability and generated a few $1,000,000 on the back end in free and clear profit because we were already profitable on the leads that we acquired that were going to show up where we actually sold what we really wanted to sell them, the high ticket thing. So low ticket to high ticket can also be an incredible option for you if you prefer to liquidate some of your ad spend up front. Here's the thing, in all scenarios, whatever you specifically commit to, there's a whole set of problems that are just bundled together waiting on the other side of you taking these actions, right? I've had clients where they've done consistent week over week webinars, risking 25K per live webinar that they've done, changing the specific day of the week or the time, the webinar content, the show rate sequences, until maybe 2 months into it or upwards of 3 months into testing. They finally crack it and then are cracking upwards of 5-to-1 or even sometimes upwards of 10-to-1 ROAS. But it takes, in that case, low hundreds of thousands of dollars in ad spend to get to that point of profitability. Thankfully, in that scenario that I'm thinking of in this example I articulated to you, they were essentially breaking even on each webinar that they've done, but that's not even always best case scenario. Most of the time, you're gonna lose money when you try a new funnel for a sustained period of time until you solve the problem, right? And that's where paying for speed can make a lot of sense. You bring in the right people that can condense the timeline of getting it to be profitable, and not only that, but getting it to be something that can scale. Those two things are the most important problems to solve. Get it to the point it's profitable, and then get it scaling. As long as you overcome those two issues, which again are just made up of so many little small issues a part of it, you're gonna have a great time. But if you can't financially endure that, and there's a specific funnel that might be more profitable for you sooner, you want to bias into that. You've likely heard and seen many times over now somebody that you know or somebody that you look to in the industry or somebody you maybe even view as a competitor that's just fucking crushing it with a specific funnel that you currently don't use. But when you hear me say these things about playing into your strengths, you might be able to more easily conclude that it just doesn't make sense for you to use that funnel. It might make more sense for you to use the specific funnel that your strengths play into, that you just haven't attempted to actually try hard on and scale with. You understand what I'm saying? Once you actually get to the point where you're like, okay, I've done the math, which specific funnel type makes the most sense for me? Let me also just kind of close with this on this specific point. Budget can also make a big difference to which funnel type you choose. So if I'm gonna do something like a webinar, I have to financially model out the webinar statistics. I have to go look and make sure that whatever I claim I want to spend on that single webinar test is going to generate enough opt-ins, get enough people to show up. I'm going to do well enough on the webinar to get enough people to book a call or direct checkout. There's then going to be enough people, if I do a book a call, that show up and close with X dollars for an AOV that makes it profitable to do that test. When we have clients that say, I want to do a webinar test, and we do the financial modeling, we'll usually have to spend upwards of about 3 to 4 times as much in the month for a test budget on a webinar funnel comparatively to a call funnel. Call funnels are a little more relenting. They don't require you to spend as much to have the amount of opportunities that you need to be able to work through with enough data coming in to get to the point where you're profitable and able to still accumulate enough data along the way when you're not profitable to make the necessary changes confidently. You understand? So it's a little more relenting in terms of ad spend, right? Again, when you pick a funnel, think with budget, think with the strengths that you have, okay? Try to play into what's already working. That's what I'm essentially trying to articulate to you when I say that. Play into what works now for you. If you're doing DM ads on Instagram, shout out campaigns organically, just fucking run DM ads, right? Don't do a call funnel, don't do a webinar, do DM ads. It makes total sense for you. If you already do a call funnel organically and all your leads are coming in really well framed because they're consuming a lot of content, from there, you have to be able to pick the right ad strategy, or if you're going to do organic, just the right acquisition strategy in general. Here's the thing with ad strategies. Okay, one thing that I've done for over a decade, I've pioneered these. I call them content first ad strategies. And I've got about a dozen of them. These content first ad strategies are pretty simple to understand. I take content that's posted organically and I replicate the organic sales process via paid ads by incorporating the content strategically at different points in the advertising and sales process. Sometimes I'll have campaigns like my Venus Flytrap or the Venus Flytrap 2.0 or the Harvester or the Tornado, these larger or the Forester, where I'll lead with content, and after either a sequence of content is consumed or just a single piece of content is consumed, I'll then immediately retarget people with direct response ads. And other strategies like my reverse Venus Flytrap, like the Hammer Them strategy, or even just other parts of the Forester, the Tornado, the Harvester as examples of my ad strategies that require you to have content, will remarket content to people after they've started to respond to direct response. Whether it's just retargeting them even if they didn't convert, or whether it's hammering the shit out of them after they took a key action like booking a call. Replicating the organic sales process via paid ads is extremely important if you're doing well with a call funnel organically and you want to have a lot of success via paid advertising. You can't just take a call funnel by itself and raw dog it with no content. That's not gonna work for you. Your salespeople are gonna bitch and moan and whine about how low quality the leads are, about how cold people are. They're gonna have a terrible time and you're gonna have a terrible time. Your dollars are just gonna fucking vaporize. You have to be able to replicate the organic sales process via via paid advertising, right? And yes, you're absolutely right to think paid advertising provides the consistency you're looking for, but remember, key point here, you have to solve a lot of little problems and a fast succession to get to the point where it's profitable and then to get to the point where it's scalable, okay? This specific combination, doing the math, picking the right funnel, picking the right ad strategy, obviously then requires you to get into action, okay? It requires you to officially place the bet, okay? This is where you've determined your ad budget that you want to start with. This is where you financially modeled everything out. This is after you've picked your funnel. This is after you've got your ad strategy in place, the ads filmed, etc. By the way, one total side note pro tip, make sure that if you're going to launch ads on Meta, that you're aware of Meta Andromeda, which is their new advertising algorithm update. I've made a video on my channel fully dedicated to that topic. I've also made another separate video on my channel as it relates to a different algorithm update that they also released. The Andromeda update is extremely important when it comes to the quantity and the diversity of creatives that you launch with when you officially go to advertise. If your advertiser has not prompted you and talked to you about that, they need to know about it now, because it's likely fucking your dollars and making you spend money less efficiently than what you otherwise could be if you followed the best practices of it. I digress though. The point I'm trying to make is very simple. You then got to place the bet and you've got to expose the problems, okay? I'll say it again. There's a whole set, a whole stack of a fuckload of things. They're all there no matter what. If you go slow, they're all still there regardless. If you go fast, you deal and solve the problems in a shorter duration of time, and therefore you get to the point of profitability and scalability sooner, okay? You have to be a little data hawk here. You've got to really know the numbers. You got to know how fucked your KPIs can be, but still enable you to scale and be profitable, okay? You got to know what a bottleneck is and where specifically you need to concentrate attention in order to attack a specific area, open up that contraction, and get a fuckload more people to funnel through. These are all mandatory. These are non-negotiable variables of the $1 million a month scaling plan that you have to have, okay? The other very important thing is you need to choose and commit to a pace. A lot of people don't do this. Therefore, the pace that they move at is extremely random and controlled and influenced by just things outside of you, outer influences. Man, have I seen that so many times where like somebody has some willingness to commit to a fast pace, and then all of a sudden they get into the action and they encounter one of the first problems they're going to deal with, and then it's just like,
turtle speed.
We don't want to do that kind of stuff. We want to commit to a pace and make sure we stay at that pace. Okay, very important. Once you get into the action and you expose the problems, again, just to reiterate, super simple, speed in which you solve problems dictates the speed in which we succeed and get to the point where we achieve this. Okay, that's all it really is. And the speed in which you move comes down to know-how. Okay? You don't know what you don't know. And for those of you sitting here thinking to yourselves, I'm kind of committed to some of what's already being talked about here, but I've been stuck for a long time. You have to update your software. You have to update what you think. You have to be able to put new data into your brain. That gives you new opportunities to think with new solutions. You only know what you know, and you can only think with what you know. That's why you're sitting here right now watching this very video. You're looking and seeking new data that can help move you forward and kick you up to that next level. Again, if you're new to my channel and this so happens to be the very first video you're ever consuming from me, every single video on my channel has so much in-depth information on so many of these individual problems that you may face or literally are actively facing right now. I would encourage that you go consume those. And of course, when you finally trust me, when you finally get results with what I've sat here, broke down for you, and am communicating to you, join into one of my paid offers. I'm not one of those guys that puts all my stuff out there for free online. Quite the opposite. I put about 10 to 20% of what I know on places like here on YouTube. And I withhold all the real secret sauce, the juice, the things that are probable to have that much more impact for my paid programs, of course, because you're paying for them. I'm really good at my job of helping rich people get richer. I understand the game. You're going to give us money, you want to turn it into more money, okay? We're really good at that. We fully understand that that's the game that we play, and we play it extremely well. If and when you become ready, again, look for the links down in the description of any one of my videos. Pick an offer that's best for you and move on it, because that's what we do. We get you that additional data that you need that helps you get to the point where you can act with certainty, move forward, and expand. So again, go check out some of my other videos on the channel. Thank you so much for being here. It's an absolute pleasure to talk with you, of course. Go get richer. Talk soon.